Welcome everybody to What Do You Bring to the Table? I'm your host, Rajiv Satyal, and I'm sitting here with Parvesh Cheena. How are you, Parv?
I'm good, my friend. Nice to see you.
Good to see you. We're really gonna do it. We're gonna stare in each other's eyes.
I know. I just wanted to go for the
2
physical
minutes. I'm
touch
glad you
because
did.
it's still nice to be able to physically touch people.
I know. We could not do this for a very, very, very long time.
No, and I think we just are starting to get safe again, in a sense. I don't want to jinx anything,
No, it's okay. You could just jinx the unvaccinated.
Well, God, them. Oh, I'm sorry. Can we swear on
You
this?
can't do that. You can. Yeah, you
Great,
can.
good,
You
just
can do
checking.
whatever you want. You
Just
can say whatever
checking.
you want. Thank you for being here, man. Making the trek up, and we missed the human touch, and we also missed the fact that now we can look in each other's eyes. Because on webcams, Zoom, you can't.
Yeah.
You're always doing the and we get our energy by looking in people's eyes.
I feel like I actually try to cheat, like even with my therapist, because I'm never going to see him in person again, because I like the Zoom world, but I do like try to look
in the camera.
Look in the camera when I'm talking to him,
Yep.
and then I look down at him,
Yep.
and I feel, and we actually discussed it.
Oh.
I was just like, hey, Eric, just so you know, like when I'm looking down here, it's because I'm looking at you,
Right.
And then I want to give you all my insecurity and
To the camera.
directly dead into that lens.
And it actually probably is easier to do that because you're not looking at a person. You're kind of looking into, but man, it's hard though because you got to focus on a non-human being.
Well, have you gotten better at it? Like, do you feel like, I feel like I'm pretty comfortable with like making the camera or that black little reflective hole.
Be a person.
Kind of.
Yeah, of course. I mean, well, you've been acting for how long?
Because this is my 20th year professional. And I go off
Wow.
of that where we get paid.
Okay, so that's your
Where I can
definition.
sit- yeah,
I think I
actually.
asked you this on my podcast that I did when you came over to my apartment in Studio City. You did my podcast, and I think because I used to ask this question a lot. What do you consider a professional?
I do believe that with deference to people who are in their process, young kids, old people if they're just starting out.
Sure.
For me, I think maybe this is the Indian immigrant mentality too. Like,
Sure.
my family left me alone when I could pay rent.
That makes sense.
So that for me was like, oh, this is the difference between amateur. Like, think of like Olympians. I know that grade, with like, I see the Michael Jordan poster, like that grade with the dream team, but like,
That level.
it was always like amateur
Sure.
before you became professional. So I thought like, oh, when you're an amateur in the Olympics, because you're not getting paid.
True.
And then you join the tour or something. So with our acting work, we do so much free work as it
Yeah.
is. Readings, projects, theater sometimes.
Yeah, student films.
Well, exactly, because you do need to grow and learn and everything, but I just felt like, oh, I'm a professional now because someone else has paid me, and not just the greed of like money, it's actually just
No.
value
No, of course.
and worth.
That's what in Moneyball he says, that you're not doing it for the money, you're doing it for what the money says, which is that you're worth it.
What's Moneyball?
Oh, Moneyball, the movie, Brad Pitt, 2013,
Keep
2011.
going. Yeah.
Yeah, Brad Pitt.
Did it have sports in it?
Yeah, but it's not about. It is about sports, but it's how movies with sports.
I was
movies
just being
have
an
really
ass. I
anything.
just like to make straight people
Maybe
like
you-
talk about sports.
That's a real stretch. Let me get you to talk about fashion.
I don't know anything. Clearly, I wear the same.
No,
this is my audition shirt.
No, this
and
is
since, No, but since I have the beard, then I'm like, oh, this makes me look like soft, nice vice principal. Like, hey, the
Yeah.
principal's gonna talk to you.
Yeah, guidance counselor almost,
Guidance counselor
Yeah.
a little bit, but
but more a little bit elevated.
don't you feel?
Yeah,
like,
I think so.
Hey,
I could be in trouble with you
right, and I'm
Yes.
like, I almost have my doctorate, but not quite yet.
if you had glasses.
Oh, well, I'm not that old.
Well, that's good. I remember you and I were on a Zoom not that long ago, and I said something about having a drink, and you just go, "Who drinks anymore?"
Who does?
Lots of people do.
Why?
Pandemic.
It's poison. No.
It is poison.
Do cannabis. Do weed.
Oh,
we,
interesting.
because we've talked. I think I've talked about this
Yeah.
too. Like, we invented it.
Yeah, you
India-
were saying that.
It's called
right.
ganja for a reason. I even told my mom, like, Mom, there's like a sect of Sikhs who smoke the marijuana, and she's like, no, and I'm like, oh, guy, is this like the thing of like, and Indians don't know about the Kama Sutra? No, we don't. I'm like, and then like, there's like when you cut back to that person saying, no, we don't have sex in India. 10 more Indians, you
Yeah,
know?
right,
Cut
right.
right back. 10 more. It's like rabbits. Nope, no one's having sex in India. Shut up. How do we have 1.5 billion people in that country?
We know how to
no,
do
no,
it.
no,
We
no
know how to do
sex.
it.
What about those two guys on the statues? Don't talk about those especially.
Well, how do we we reconcile that? Was it always a subset of the population that was doing that, and then 95% or 99% were not, or did we become more conservative?
Yes. Do you know where we got conservative?
No, I don't know much about the history of India.
I don't either. I'm just going to give you my idea.
Ray leading the Ray. Lead me by the wrist.
Please. I honestly think it's the British. I think it's colonialism. I think it's their stuffy Christianity
The Puritan streak.
Eddie Izzard always has that great joke from his first like Dress to Kill, his stand-up where you first see him is like gender fluid and everything. Even back then he was just like, oh, I'm just more of a transvestite. Now, cut to 20, 30 years later, we have different phrases.
Right.
But that's the sidebar. But what he says in that is like, the Puritans, so uptight that the British kicked them out to find their religious freedom here. Remember their first year, they didn't even celebrate Christmas because it didn't fall on Sunday, the Sabbath. Then I started thinking about like so much of their colonialism did in America, India, the Oscar Wilde gross indecency law, which India uses to oppress LGBTQ people because of, I'm like, you guys are holding on to a British thing from like the 1800s that they've already let go.
Right.
So that's one element. I do find that you have that. We have that thing of like work. That goes into our capitalist corporate stuff. The religious element of that colonialism, like don't be the religion of the savages and the New World to us Indians. Like by then, I think we're just too advanced where they didn't make us Anglican. They knew like, oh, we can't do to you what we did a couple hundred years ago. So that's actually where I think a lot of that
oppression.
Like my parents went to Catholic schools in India.
Yeah.
And we know like how the British, like Gandhi talked about this, like the British gave Indians the language to communicate with each other to finally kick them out. With English or with
of course. Without
Hindi.
that, we couldn't unite.
So with all these jokes about
we had Hindi.
Well, Hindi was even still kind of cobbled by the British. They took the bulks of so many languages, a lot of Punjabi, and then they like, here's your national language.
Yeah.
So when I think about like even any jokes about like cannabis, to sex, to sexuality and that expression, every culture had it. Even in what is now predominantly Islamic countries that had Rumi. I mean, like Sufism, like it does get kind of put down upon by either. I mean, religion is a big part of it. I'm an atheist, so I do rail against that too.
But speaking of sex, because you weren't that just then, but that's where my mind was.
I love sex.
Yeah, there you have it. It's they're not as repressed. So I think the Puritans that came here, it's almost like how Indians who left India, they're frozen. You're frozen in time,
We've
right?
talked about
and we've talked about this. And any one who leaves a country goes to another, it's frozen. But India, for my parents, is 1971, and that's it. And it doesn't matter if it's Ireland or India or Israel or wherever. If you leave a country, go not even to America, but Britain, or you go to France. So it's frozen there. It's probably the same thing with the Puritans who left Britain, and then Americans just became that, because we're very sexually repressed here too.
Well, of course, because sexual repression, as we're seeing with even trans folks to non-binary, gender non-conforming, like they're living, how Alok Menon, I believe is their name, please forgive, is living like this life so freely where even I have moments of like, gosh, how can you go out with the hair on your shoulders? Because even I'm like, I gotta go to a gay weekend in Palm Springs. I'm like, wax it all! Those judgy white gays, But like, that's me in my 30s. Like now you cut to so many people and they're living this free life.
I still think they should shave their shoulders.
Never, not anymore.
Unless they're bears.
But that's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah,
I think
then it's fine.
Alok has it, and I'm like, this is the thing why it bothers some people so much to be like, don't do that. There's this element of people that don't want someone to live freely and openly. Talk about pure libertarianism. Like, it's like me expressing my way. If I wear a dress today, I feel like I'm so Gen X-y.
Yeah.
Set in my like old ways. Like I just like I'm so mass presenting. I'm so like kind of cisgendered. But like when I do think of the people who are breaking free against it, and the people who clamp down on it, I'm just like, why?
Well, you know why.
But why? What do you think?
Well, there's the external reason and the internal reason. The external reason is because they're assholes.
Right.
And the internal reason is that they're assholes. The internal reason is that it's getting to their own insecurities. How come you get to express yourself like that, and I'm too scared to?
Right.
And you're tapping into their fear. That's why it's homophobia and not like racism, which is hatred. I think homophobia bumps people in a different way. Transphobia, I think it is more fear-based.
I think there's a part of it too where it's not just black or white, left, right, up, down, yin, yang anymore. I used to think that way. It was like left or right, up, down, like only two choices, right? And
binary.
because we also view that even with our two-party system here in this country.
Yeah,
We're like,
it's garbage.
you might not like Biden, but he's better than
Where are you going to go without me?
Right.
Exactly.
Where are you going to go?
It's the same thing.
So we've had to especially people of color, especially queer folks, have always had to settle for like there's a better choice. There just has to be one.
less bad shows.
And now we're learning, I think, from elders to the kids who have, skipped a few of our like kind of quieter, repressed generations. They're like, no, there are 20 choices. And today I'm this, tomorrow I'm that, and I'm always in between. And I think that scares people.
It does.
Who's like we know like early 2000s, like how some straight people would be like, who's the guy, who's the girl in your relationship?
Right.
I'm like, you need that?
Yeah.
You need that? Okay, because I understand in your mind, it can only be this or that.
Right. I've always voted against my economic interests. So I've voted for every single levy, every single tax increase. And so, well, I won't say exactly where, but very close to here, there was somebody who had a tent in their front yard for a homeless person.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of people in the neighborhood who were like, we need to report,
Sure,
and I was like, no, we don't. And they're like, why? I go, because this person, and the guy goes, and he's kind of he just goes, this is my Christian duty, is to let this person who's living in a tent who's homeless live in my yard, and this is what I want to do. So wherever it's coming from, I'm like, that's a good thing. And they're like, well, he needs to move. I'm like, move where? He's got to go somewhere, and this is what NIMBYs are, not in my backyard or not in his front yard. It's like, that's his front yard. If that kid's not bothering you, then who are we to say he should be gone from the neighborhood? But most people they'll talk a liberal game, but when it comes to their doorstep, they're like, well, get out of here. I'm like, well, you can't be like that.
Yeah, of course, because they want their own safety and their immediate thing.
Which is lame.
It's the element of people who don't money to a person
on the street.
Right, versus
do
donate. I do a mix because I understand, and I don't even, the thing like, I don't want them to they use drugs or whatever. I'm like, you do.
What about the ganja?
Money and
spreading our culture,
or cocaine or whatever. people do. So like, I don't.
I give money to people on the streets all the time, and I do give some to charity, but I've come to believe that charity's bullshit. I think you should just give money to people on the streets.
I do feel like there's a part, and I don't know if this is like I don't love Andrew Yang, but I like some of his things where I'm fine with some of, because it does fit, the universal basic income thing does kind of fit into, if you just need, they're going to exist. People are going to exist, people who don't want to participate in society, people who have mental health, whatever. They're here.
And they don't affect you.
No, so give them at least enough money to have a place to live, have health care, have food, and if that's the bare minimum, how does it affect anyone else? Well, they didn't earn that. I'm like, they're here.
They're here. It's not going.
They're here.
It's like the kids in class who did not study for the test, and they would cheat or whatever. I'm like, I would kind of help them out, honestly, because I'm like, what are they supposed to do? They're like, well, so you're going to let them cheat off your test? I'm like, so? They're not going to bust the curve.
Yeah.
What difference does it make?
Or like, they're still not going to become a doctor when it comes to
like, why not help them? Like, yeah, but they partied, they didn't work. I'm like, but I still want to be number one in the class. I'm still going to study. So it doesn't affect me.
When you bring that up, actually, with the school thing, because I remember, I always thought, like, with our friends, they were the friends who were concerned about being first, second, third, fourth in the class.
Yeah, I was very concerned with it.
And see, I viewed it from like, we can all get an A+. We can all cross the finish line. We could all finish in 4 minutes and 30 seconds.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who's first. And even on the drive here, I'm just thinking about like, where did we get all this, like the Trump winning, the Charlie Sheen winning, losers, all this element?
It's just a scarcity mentality.
And that's equality too, right? Oh, these black people are getting equality, but mine's taken away. Oh, you brown people are getting a lot of parts. It must be easy being ethnic. You're getting all these parts. I'm like, oh, you just perceive it because it's just going like this. You know?
And it will a little bit. Like, I think that's the reality, and I think that's the mistake our side, the liberal side, makes, is that we don't. Bill Maher talked about this recently on his show, where he goes, and I know you're not a big Bill Maher
I
fan.
loved Bill Maher because he was the cool atheist uncle who smoked pot, and he was great during the the Bush years.
Yeah.
And then Obama, fine. And now, do you know what? In the element of woke culture and cancel culture and everything, and this sensitivity where you're talking about like that they feel like they're being scolded. How does it bereft you though when someone else is now, when we don't make fun of Caitlyn Jenner all you want for being an attention whore, being from that family, being awful human being.
Yeah, right.
But does she dick jokes about her transition? Because I don't want to make fun of someone for who they inherently are. Again, the gender.
Yeah, sure.
Everything we've talked about. Make fun of what they
For
do.
what they do, not what they are.
Trump, you can make fun of him for being orange because he chooses to go get tanned and do that makeup. But then you don't make fun of the colorism of black and Indian people. Like that's the thing where Bill Maher, where he keeps railing about, and especially he rails the most when the audience, the round table, is only white people. Bring in a trans black person, bring in a black woman who can be like, you are just saying this because you want to keep making your jokes and as we keep growing, my comedy and humor for the bulk of my life was in service of white majority. White dudes. Oh, my name is Parv, and I'm not like those other Indians. Oh, I'm straight acting. I like guys. I'm the guy in the relationship. I'm not like those other gays. So that's where Bill Maher
I'm one of the good ones.
is to me, in the sense where he just seems to be like, I can't make come on, I date black women, I can't make black jokes. No. You can't when your joke is just cruelty and harm. It's boring. It's boring now. Get better. Get better in your comedy.
Evolve. Here's the thing, and this is also the issue, is that it's so hard to find the actual fact, right? So when Andrew Cuomo did what he did,
Yes.
I think he probably should be gone, but I was never allowed to opine because I don't know what he did. No one told me what he did.
The sexual harassment and inappropriate
I don't know the
touching.
specifics. I don't know when. I don't know any of this stuff. So
There are
it
a-
probably
there-
is
no, but there are a
really
lot of-
bad.
no, there are a
but
lot of
I'd like
people-
I'd like the media. I'd like people to lay it out so that I can go, yeah, that's empirically bad. It's the same thing with.
You don't think it was laid out? You don't think that
No,
enough
I
of the women
still don't know
did?
what years all that happened, and I dug. I tried to find this information. Like where, what, when did this happen?
I
All
don't
this
know
stuff.
exactly either, because I think it's more of like New York focused. But there's a assemblywoman, Yulene. I can't say Yulene's last name because I'm poor at it. But she's a assemblywoman. She's making her way up the ranks in a sense too. And this is a problem. Like she said, like no. When there's 1 or 10 or 15. But there are specifics, and she had,
And I'm sure there are.
accusers did come forward, and it's documented. And
I would just like to know. It's similar with Michael. What's his name? The Jeopardy host that didn't become the Jeopardy host.
Richards.
They said he made all these remarks. But what were the remarks? Can I know what the remarks
The
were?
Price of Right. There was a sexual harassment, or he interfered in someone's hiring
so
or
I'd
firing.
like to know what the facts are.
Sure.
And then it's also a teachable moment for people to go, ooh, that was really bad. Multiple allegations about public figures are always true. If 10 to 15 women come forward about Andrew Cuomo, I'm just going, on numbers alone, this is probably true, okay? But I would like to know what the specifics were, and this is what I was talking to my wife about. I go, if he made inappropriate comments, the line has moved. If he would have said something in 2019, it's very different from saying it before the Me Too movement. It still lands the same way to women or anyone else, wherever on the gender spectrum. But it's far more egregious if in the midst of Me Too, it's like, you're still not getting this? This is pretty obvious now. Whereas there's a lot of stuff that was acceptable in the culture, which should not have been. It still would land, that line moved. Like what we can say now is very different from what we can say.
It's also like power, and it's also power. You can
Yeah.
say anything to any stranger on the street, free speech, fine. When you're someone's boss, when you're someone who hires, pays, can control
Sure.
your career, that's different.
Sure.
Making a pass at somebody at a bar might be crude, crass, awful, don't talk to that dick. But it's a lot different than
it's a
if
power
you're
dynamic.
if it's like,
Of
oh,
course.
you're my new secretary, nice boobs.
Oh, well, yeah, okay, so but now you've given me something to react to.
Yeah, but that's
where I'm gonna
I
go,
think
oh my
that
God, that's a really
I think
terrible
most
thing
of
to
the
say.
Cuomo issues were at work.
Was it that, or was it you look nice today? Which you still can't say. And now you can't say it. Before,
Do you need to say it?
now that question is being asked, but for most of my life, that was a completely normal thing to say. Now we look back and go, it probably was making women feel uncomfortable.
Because the worth of a woman in an office is still on her physical appearance. How many times in Mad Men do you think that anyone would be Don Draper, like 2 straight guys would be like, Don, you look hot today?
Well, I mean, I would probably.
Well, that's because you're looking
yeah.
Don Draper. But do you see, like, but they don't do that. But to women, they're like, oh, hi, sweetheart, nice
Right.
dress,
But
good eyes.
100%, and also realize that for most of, but in society, that was accepted. It was still wrong, but it was accepted.
But so much.
Now it's unacceptable.
Come
Now
on,
it's not accepted.
but talk about anything that's acceptable. And they used to call black people boy.
And now you'd be in a lot of trouble if you
Right,
did. But it was
that's what
still
I'm
wrong
saying.
when they did it.
Sure.
But it became unacceptable. There's a difference. There's a moral aspect and then there's a societal aspect, and one lags the other.
I just feel like why, if there's a possibility it could hurt or harm somebody, and I know where again, even Bill Maher's like, but everything I say then is going to hurt and harm somebody. I'm like,
Yeah, but that's a cop-out.
then now you're a victim.
Yeah, that's a
You know,
yes.
you're like a martyr. Oh, I can't say anything. Where's my free speech? Get on that. When conservatives always complain about Twitter blocked me, I'm like, it's a private company.
Yeah, it is.
We're in the oh, I forgot the Bill of Rights. And any future technology with their
Yes.
private platforms get on your
No, but it didn't even mean that then, because
Right.
people in the privacy of their homes could say whatever they wanted and all that stuff. It didn't protect you from that.
What's the fire? It's like
What's the
fire in a
fire
movie
about it?
theater.
Yeah,
Like if you
exceptions.
yell it, you can say it, but there's implications. So
100%.
we have places where you go. We know, like it's these plazas. We know it's Speaker's Corner in London, you know, or for I don't know if the Brits have it, but like there's element of like, no, this is where you go and spout your hate, spout your love.
Fox News.
No one is stopping you.
Yeah, OAN, the Republican Party.
Ugh,
yeah,
it's
anywhere.
it's just pathetic. It's just so transparent how they're like, oh, we're offended. I'm
yeah,
like,
it's all of the pearl clutching.
yeah,
Yeah. Parv, tell me a little bit about your projects. What are you up to?
nothing.
Great. Let's play ping pong.
Yeah,
So, drugs.
yeah.
So let's talk about drugs. I know very little about them because I've done nothing.
Nothing? Just alcohol.
Just alcohol, and I mean nothing. Only recreational drug I've done is alcohol. So,
Never, nothing?
Nothing.
Not Molly, not cannabis, not cocaine?
Nothing. Wow. So no, definitely cocaine would be the last on that list, I would imagine, for me.
You didn't want to go to like a rave when we were in the 90s?
I did, but I just drank, and that was probably lame. But I don't know. I would just, at the time I said it's because I'd run for office. Now that's meaningless because
no, I get that.
Bush and Obama both did coke. So
Well, we had the Clinton scare of like, I didn't inhale.
didn't inhale. Exactly. That whole
Well,
thing.
I have like this, because I'm a big cannabis user.
Okay, and you have been for quite a while?
No, it really is only like the last like 5-6 years.
Oh, that's pretty late to get started.
I think so. Like college, a little bit like, oh, okay, but we should go to the bar now, you know?
Right.
It's culturally accepted and everything. I think, you know, like, and I'm Punjabi, so we're known for like, we fight, we
Yeah,
drink,
we party,
right?
we dance, we go out.
He knows, you know, a little, right?
This guy knows what I'm talking
So,
about.
but it's just that element of like, why are we drinking this Irish, Scottish, European whiskey? You know, every time we go to India, like, get the Glenfiddich, get the Glenlivet.
Yeah. Oh, but you guys are top shelf. My
Well-
family was like Chivas Regal. I'm like, that's garbage. I may as well drink ethanol.
But see, like, there's that, like, why is this like the, ooh, fancy, you know, you have to get the...
Yeah, you gotta get the British, the colonial stuff.
And part of me then started thinking about, like, our further East Asian friends who are, you know, the Asian gene, like how they can't handle alcohol, that. I started thinking about, like, I was a horrible drug. I'm an alcoholic, actually.
Oh, you are?
Yeah. I went to AA and everything. I don't
Oh.
go regularly because I don't like the God aspect as an atheist.
Oh,
And
right.
what I found was that cannabis, like, I'm not belligerent on cannabis.
Of course,
I don't
of course.
black out on cannabis.
Sure.
I don't turn into a different person, and let alone the disease of not being able to stop.
Right.
Now, I think of cannabis, even the joke about it being like an Indian drug, you know, the ganja of it all. Like, and technically they even say during the slave trade, the molasses trade, why it got to the West Indies, why we think of it as like Bob Marley, Rastafari in Jamaica, we brought it. the people on those ships, like it cultivated over there from India. So then I started thinking about like a drug that does well with Indians. Like it's calm, it helps you eat. It just turned out to be, especially when we take away again that puritanical, the religious element. Christianity, the transmutation of the communion wine turning into Jesus' blood.
Right.
It's written into their religion, you know?
Sure. And it's not forbidden in Hinduism.
Right, but it's still...
But it's not part and parcel of who we are.
And it's not the best one. There are better things to do, you know? Like if you're
like
hungry...
you feel better on cannabis than you do drinking.
I just think it's better overall for everybody. But it's not this wonder cure. It's not harmless.
Yeah, what's the harm in it?
I think like anything, like it can be cardiovascular, there can be issues.
Yeah.
All of these drugs do pass through our liver.
They do.
But I just feel like it's less. It's just, especially in this time of pandemic, you know, you talked about like how everyone's getting alcohol delivered. Great. So you're on an aggressive, assertive thing that makes you break down your inhibitions at home. Cannabis, oh yay, the edible got delivered, and now let's order some pizza and watch Netflix for hours.
Yeah.
Pretty okay.
And do you call yourself Indian, South Asian?
I say brown a lot.
You say brown.
Yeah.
Why
Only
brown?
because sometimes it is just a color. Like when people then get specific about Pakistan versus India, like, you know, my nani is pregnant with my mom in 47 when, you know, oh, the British again, you know, like, you Muslims, you guys should have your own country. Hey, Nehru, you know, you guys are the Hindus. Oh, Sikhs, you're and we're gonna draw the border, it's mountains, we're done. They didn't even finish the border.
Yeah.
20 million people, 1 million die in a day. Like, it's arbitrary. So then then think about even like in our casting. I don't get to go in, I'm sure, maybe you have seen this too, like I don't get to go in for Pakistani roles because now there's this hypersensitivity to being very specific. And then what am I going to tell them? Like, oh yeah, I get it. You know, my grandparents, born and raised, lived in Lahore their whole life, but because of their religion, they moved on this day in August in 47.
So doesn't it bother you that you can't go out for that role?
It just is weird because it was all one people, it was all this, but we made different lands based on color, race, religion. And we even know this, like even among Sikhs, you'll have like the Jat Sikhs, the farmer Sikhs, the city Sikhs. I'm like, even when we're all the same, we still look for division.
That's why I'm saying like the British, screw the British and screw them and screw them and screw them.
Yeah.
But my gosh, like we still do this to ourselves.
But every culture does. Even white people will do it to themselves.
They
the
do.
Rich, the poor. Look at like S.E. Hinton, The Outsiders. Rich, the socias versus the greasers. Like there's not a black or brown person. Well, because
when we need to, we don't. I don't think we do. Like we needed to pull together during partition, and I know that's asking a lot. I wasn't
religion,
fair.
but that's religion. You can't mess with what people think is going to happen to them when they die.
When did you become an atheist?
I think I've always kind of been, because the hypocrisy and dogma of a lot of stuff. I finally I had an ex who kind of was like, why are you wearing your kara if you say you're not religious? And I'm like, well, just in case.
Yeah, right,
you know?
right.
It was just in case.
Were you let go?
Yeah, and then I felt like, yeah, this feels oppressive to me, in the sense of like, they don't seem very gay friendly. I remember like when the Canadian government had gay marriage before us, and Sikh leaders from India were telling Sikh leaders in Canada, don't support this law. I was kind of out. I was kind of like, it's not even codified in the Guru Granth Sahib. They just say, like every religion, every group, be fruitful and marry, right? We laugh at Mormons or Jewish people or Catholics who have a lot of kids. We do, every culture, every group needs to make more of their tribe to keep power and land and everything. So I know how some religious people will always, some queer people will always try to explain the religion that I believe sometimes does not like them, because technically, without modern world of surrogacy, adoption, everything, but just then, two male species could not have offspring. Two women could not.
Right.
So that, I think, was all it was about. But then like when the Granth Sahib says, no, you just need to be a family. So then a lot of gay Sikhs are like, we are having a family. So then I lived in that world for a bit, like, okay, because you're who you want to have sex with, who you want to love. There's a difference between why you are not my partner is because you and I do not make a family together.
Right.
We don't have that further, the biggest expression of partnership, love that people do. So when they did that, I was just like, I'm done.
What do you see as your role in the South Asian community, in the brown community?
I don't know. What do you see yours as?
Mine? I mean, what I'm doing right here, bringing people together, helping tell their stories, getting to know the person behind the persona, all the stuff all the BS I put on the website about the show is, I believe it, so.
Good. I'm very glad. I don't. What? I mean, like I stand for oppressed people everywhere, but I don't feel like.
Okay, so.
But I don't feel like I'm anyone to speak for anyone but myself.
Not even fellow Indians?
No, because.
Could they have a different experience?
Well, right.
Well, I don't know. I mean, there are different ways to look at it.
I don't. It's hard for me. It's just. I don't have that earnest bone to be like, hey, everybody, on behalf of queer people everywhere. No, it's just. Because then all you do is invite hubris for when you'll have someone on tour be like, Parvesh Cheena doesn't speak for me.
Yeah.
Like send.
But should you listen to that person?
No, but then why even? What do you stand for yourself? I think it's better to live by example.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to be like, I'm not going to yell and tell people like quit alcohol or become like 95% plant-based, like we're trying to be.
Right.
Because I still need cheese. I still need the occasional deep dish pizza.
Yeah,
from
it's hard
Chicago.
to give it up entirely.
But I learned that even actually my bestie Sonal Shah, she's Jain, she's vegetarian, and we would eat out all the time. And I'm like, this little girl slip of a thing is eating the same food as me, Mexican, Thai, Indian. Hers just doesn't have chicken. I could do this, and that's how she won. In the sense of like, that's how she influenced me with her point of view about.
Yeah, she led by the power of her example.
Right. Versus like, she never said, Parvesh, you really should, every day we ate, she should be like, oh, you're eating meat again. Oh, you're drinking again. Oh, I'm like, that would never work.
That's what I mean by scolding.
What?
That's what I mean by scolding. Living by example.
Yeah.
And there you go.
Yeah, it's living by example.
That's what it is.
We solved it.
We solved it.
We solved it.
It's tough, right? Advice for the kids out there, but you're not going to be in earnest, so what's the point?
I will do advice for the kids.
What do you want to say? You want to say anything meaningful? This will go to, I don't know, at least 3 or 4 people will watch it.
I think there's a power of yes. That I think it's like the improviser mentality.
The yes and.
Yeah, in the sense of like, isn't life better to be like, yeah, I'll try that food. Oh, yeah, I'm gonna listen to what pronouns you want to hear. Mm-hmm. Oh, yes, I understand why you feel you're oppressed, but let me just show you the data why. There's this versus like living this way of like, no, no, I can't give you your rights. No, this, that. And even then, specifically with acting and art, if someone asks you to do something and it's not conflicting with your, your paid gig, say yes. Help a friend out. Like in the, like you asked me like 10 times to come here. So I finally just said yes. No, you didn't have to beg. Only one.
It was great having my guest Parvesh Cheena on What Do You Bring to the Table. Parvesh, any last parting words?
No.
I've been your host Rajiv, and I'm Satyal.